So last year, Apple didn't increase the screen size for the iPhone. Instead, it added fingerprint recognition. This year, it's finally caught up with all the Android handset makers, and it's making phones bigger. So it's got a 4.7-inch screen for the iPhone 6 and a 5.5-inch screen, which takes it into phablet territory, for the iPhone 6 Plus. Compared to the 4-inch screen of the iPhone 5S, the iPhone 6 feels like a very natural extension. It just feels like it falls into the hand very easily. Whereas the iPhone 6 Plus, with its 5.5-inch screen, is much bigger. It really feels gigantic. But after a little while, after an hour or two, you start to look forward to its big screen and to all the extra content that you can get onto this. And the small screen of the 5S feels like something you want to leave behind. It's quite a surprising change, although I think everyone who's used an Android phone for any length of time will be very familiar with that. The 6 is actually thinner than the 5S. Apple had a thin phone already, but now it's really gone for something very thin. And what's more, the edges are rounded. And Apple has done this because the edge swipe is very important when you're using iOS 7 and iOS 8. Of course, Apple has had to make some compromises. So whereas the power button used to be on the top of the 5S, it's now on the side of the 6 and the 6 Plus because your thumb physically can't reach that far. Apple has made a couple of allowances for the fact that these screens are bigger than what iPhone users might be used to. So for the 6 Plus, when you turn it on its side and view it in landscape version, the whole of the screen rotates, but not the dock, so that you have what's more like a tablet view. And a number of the software programs are optimized for that as well, such as Mail. And also with both the 6 and the 6 Plus, if you double tap very lightly on the home button, then the screen comes down to half height. It's a compromise that Apple has offered so that people can reach the top of the screen without having to move their hand, in effect. And it works pretty neatly, I find. With the faster A8 processor, which has 2 billion transistors in it, Apple's now offering a super slow-mo option in the camera, so that you can take film at 240 frames per second. And on the 6 Plus, you also get optical image stabilization, which means that the gyroscope will allow for movement in the frame and will smooth it out. The iPhone 6 and 6 Plus also have NFC, near-field communications chips in them, which means they run Apple Pay, which is Apple's way of doing cashless payments. iOS 8, which will run on phones as old as the iPhone 4S from 2011, adds a number of key functionalities. You can have third-party keyboards such as SwiftKey. You get extensions which will add functionality to apps such as Safari. And you can also get widgets which will give you a quick view of other activities that are happening in apps such as eBay or your stocks by swiping down from the top of the phone. One feature that iOS brings, which I think many parents will appreciate, is called family sharing. It lets you link up to 5 devices through a single iTunes account. So in effect, one person's credit card becomes the gatekeeper for people buying apps on that account. So this means that in-app purchases of huge amounts will become a thing of the past. Also new in iOS 8 is the Health app, which connects to Apple's Health Kit. You can enter medical details about yourself, which will be held only on the device, and Apple is also looking to connect this to all sorts of health devices, although none of this information will be held in the cloud. Apple's also noticed how people are using messages these days. The popularity of things like Snapchat means that you can now send photos or short voice messages to people which will auto-destruct within a few seconds unless the person at the other end chooses to keep them. So the question is, what is Apple's iPhone 6 going to do to its position in the market? A lot of people did sit out when the 5S was introduced because Apple had not come up with a phone that was more than 4 inches. I think now what I'm hearing from people is that they're much more interested in getting an iPhone upgrade because of this 4.7-inch form factor. When you compare it to phones such as the Samsung Galaxy Ultra, well, I think the Galaxy Ultra is just not as nice a phone. It doesn't feel as pleasant. The siding around it is a bit rough and unpleasant to the hand. The LG G3, which is another high-end phone, has a much deeper back. It's not actually as thin as the iPhone 6 is. So my feeling is that Apple is going to have a lot of success with this phone, especially. The iPhone 6 is expected to be the better seller of the two, simply because its size falls into the hand much more easily. To anyone used to an iPhone 4S or the iPhone 5 family, the iPhone 6 Plus will feel like a giant. And I think that this is an area where Apple is going head on with Samsung with its Galaxy Note family, which has had this top-end phablet space to itself for the past 3 years. I do think that the app library that Apple has, the brand recognition, and just the simple fact that it's come in with a phone which is really very aesthetically pleasing, far more so than the Galaxy Note, is really going to put a lot of pressure onto Samsung. So it'd certainly be true to say that Apple is late to the large screen market. There have been phablets, the 5.5-inch form factor, since about 2012. Here we are in 2014, and Apple's only just introducing one. Well, I think that's certainly a fair criticism, but I think that it's going to be shown that what they've done is let the market develop and then moved in at the last point to scoop it all up.